Dick Tracy. Okay, boys, let's go. This could be our big break. And welcome to Nostalgia, a chronological exploration of every NES game released in North America. I'm Mike.
I'm Sean.
And I'm Joe.
And Joe, you are our resident Dick Tracy expert. We've been hyping this up for a long time. We know that you went into the archives and read every newspaper comic strip and are just completely one with the canon of Dick Tracy. So you want to just talk a little bit about, your fandom?
Sure. Dick Tracy began sometime in the 1930s. I don't remember the exact
No,
date,
not the Wikipedia article. Your relationship.
That's not the Wikipedia article. I'm assuming has the exact date, not sometime in the 1930s. I don't.
That would
remember
be
the
funny if
exact
they
date.
just got away with that on Wikipedia. Sometime in the 1930s. We'll fill it
my
in.
fandom. Okay, the first time I saw the movie, the 90s movie, if we're not talking about the history that I did look up on Wikipedia, the first time I saw the 80s, 90s movie,
1990, same year.
1990 movie was roughly 2.5 hours ago in preparation for this episode.
You just
but I did
watched it.
watch the whole movie, so it's fresh. I know I wasn't on the episode when you guys apparently nominated me to watch it, to consume all Dick Tracy media. So this felt like a good compromise. I'll consume one piece of Dick Tracy media, and it's a pretty good movie. I actually kind of liked it.
I mean, it is the biggest one.
What'd you think of the score?
Danny Elfman, gotta love Danny Elfman.
Yeah, right? And you know what? It's funny. Danny Elfman and also Touchstone Pictures, which, they have that logo and everything and that sound design. I feel like Danny Elfman does a lot of Touchstone Pictures stuff.
It's
I
funny,
gotta look into that.
I didn't know that Danny Elfman did the score, but I just figured
But
that he
you
did.
knew.
I didn't even see the
You
movie.
knew. I didn't either, but when I first started, and I was just like, I also went as far as this is Danny Elfman and Tim Burton. I made that part up, but it felt like it should have been both of them. But yeah, it was definitely a style that I wasn't expecting. It's very I don't even know if I can compare it to anything. It's
Is it like Sin City, but goofy?
I guess that would be having not seen Sin City. I think that it would be a good comparison. It's very bright, but dark. It's noir, but with he does wear that iconic yellow overcoat, and the bad guys all have very colorful bow ties and things like that. But it's not completely silly either, which is just a cool stylistic choice. And all the bad guys have really heavy makeup effects to look like, I'm assuming, some cartoonish way that they looked in the comics. Maybe not, but that was my guess. Yeah, I would know after the Wikipedia article. But there's a character in the very beginning named Lips, and they just he's just got a really big mouth, clearly makeup, and it's obviously makeup. It doesn't look real, but it fits the style. There's a guy named Little Face who just has a regular sized head with a tiny face in the middle of it. It's some goofy
cool
stuff, but even the look of the city is this weird. It looks like it looks like they're in a cartoon, but it's all real. It's all just sets that are really colorful and stylized.
That's fun.
And the movie came out in 1990, so the game is actually appropriate for once to use a really old franchise and make a video game about it. It's it's a movie tie-in. How much of a movie tie-in it is, we'll get into. How much of a fun game it is, of course, we'll get into. Dick Tracy, of course. Joe, you mentioned the yellow coat and hat. They nailed it in the movie stylistically. They nail it in the game too. The yellow coat, for what it's worth.
It is yellow. It's very
that's
yellow.
what we'll be judging. Yeah,
they got
that's
the right color.
Yeah, yep. It's faithful. So Dick Tracy, as a detective, right? This game could have been a lot of different things. It could have just been also a game where you're just Dick Tracy with a Tommy gun and you just action stages breaking up the mafia or whatever, right? That could have been a thing. But instead, it's a little bit interesting. So the players, you control Dick Tracy and you have this overhead city map and these side-scrolling action sequences, but also this like detective-y gameplay element to it too, where you kind of have to like track down and get enough information to have the
notebook.
Yeah, you gotta do some deductions.
You got some mug shots.
Right. But it's not LA Noire, okay? You're not like investigating a crime that you have to like actually visit the crime scene and interview people and keep track of what they said and try to catch people in a lie. It's not Phoenix Wright either.
You can't press X to doubt. It's correct.
Right, and it's not Phoenix Wright either, where it's like, oh, it's just a visual novel thing, and you're just kind of point and clicking on the screen of like, oh, that was a lie because I have this piece of evidence or this. You know, it's actually really just about figuring out where these criminals are in the overhead city, tracking them down, breaking up their gangs, and then arresting them to get one new clue that leads you to the next gangster. And so in a way it is open world, right, with this overhead city, but it is much more mission based and you know, I feel like there's a lot of different things to pull. So like there's the Who Framed Roger Rabbit element of it too, because that was another like movie tie-in game, and you were on an overhead map and you went into buildings and stuff.
You're not checking all of the drawers, though, in this one.
Right. But this is, again, not necessarily an investigative detective story. So before we get into what you do in each segment and break it down, I just wanted to get your take there on, like, were you surprised that this was the gameplay loop?
Are you asking the resident expert, or just is that an open question?
That's an open question. Sean, you're allowed to talk on this episode.
Oh, good. Okay, cool. I was surprised that this is how we were going about it. I also just didn't know much about Dick Tracy. I didn't watch the movie. I watched the trailer. I was surprised by the cast and how I had never heard of it. So I wasn't really sure what it was going to be. So I was surprised to see it was like, oh, this is a detective game. But that is kind of surface level, as we've been kind of alluding to. The whole detective element is kind of more a framing for all of the levels that you go through, and sort of a menu that you can die on a lot. And so yeah, I was pleasantly surprised that there was more depth to the game than just like scroll to the right and shoot stuff and then get like maybe a couple screenshots of a cutscene. At least in the concept. The concept was very impressive.
Yeah, I'll second that about the concept only. But I also, went into this with no expectations because I did play this game before having watched the movie, or really consumed any Dick Tracy media. So this was my intro point to Dick Tracy, and then I was like, oh, check out that movie because this game is so good. But I guess the only thing I knew about it was just through like the cultural zeitgeist is that Dick Tracy is a detective. So I wasn't like surprised to see that, you've got clues, you got to follow leads and everything. But I do think that the leads and the clues and the notebook really are all just like interesting, but like very minor ways to get from level to level.
Yeah, and so I think let's start at the very beginning of the game. It just kind of it leaves you with the idea that you can go anywhere and do anything, but you really can't do that. You have to you have one lead, and you need to find that specific person. You can enter any building, which you've got to applaud them for that they give you that kind of freedom. But because nothing will happen other than some side-scrolling action, nothing will happen. It does kind of become like you do wish a little bit for the Who Framed Roger Rabbit, open up all the drawers, not to search for absolutely nothing, but so that you have like a living world here where maybe you could go to a bar and try to gain some more intel if that one clue that they gave you wasn't enough. Ultimately, you are just trying to look for the right building, get past all of the mobsters in the side-scrolling part, and then arrest the criminal at hand. But to get there is a mission all on its own, because once you enter that overworld, surprise, this is not our reality. This is a reality where, this is a reality that every American fears, right? The mafia has taken over America, and they are on the rooftops of every building. And Joe, tell me if this is true. In the movie, were there snipers on every rooftop?
I don't think there was a sniper in the movie at all, so as far as I can remember. But it was a long time ago.
They do exist in Manhattan, though. That's what all the traffic's about.
Right. Right. That is happening. But the thing about the snipers on the roof is like, there's like not much you can do about them. I mean, you can get out of your car and shoot at them, but at that point you might as well just drive away. So like that, it felt unfair to me to have these snipers on the roof.
Yeah, that's sort of what I was alluding to about like the menu that you can die on, because you get information. Like, basically, most of the game is just getting information, like, oh, you gotta go here now. And it's just, like, kind of a coordinate system that isn't perfect because it physically doesn't really work out. But you'll get there eventually. And it would be, I guess it's just because people would just see it as, like, a glorified menu if you could very easily traverse this city. So they just littered it with these snipers that whittle down your very limited health. Each hit that you get on the overworld takes away from the health that you have to then go through in each of the like on foot missions. And then that's kind of like where I died most of the time. You can try and juke them. Like I was able at times to like just sort of drive and then slow down and then drive faster and not get hit, but that only works so many times and you have to do a lot of driving. So it's very difficult.
I just thought the mafia's whole thing was that like they had the police in their pocket, but they're just like actively trying to kill an officer in the line of duty, and like none of the other police care about it.
Dick Tracy is a cop. You're right.
He is.
Well, maybe it's like I think he is a police detective. I was gonna say private investigator, but I'm pretty sure he is actually like a member of the force.
He actually works for the police force.
Yeah. I mean, they don't even say this though, right? But like, I get the idea that this is all happening in like Chicago, right? Like, they don't say Chicago ever, right? It's like he probably has like some made up like metropolis like place that he lives in.
I don't think they mentioned the name of the city.
If
but I
the
get
streets
the
are just
like,
numbers and letters, like I would have thought maybe Alphabet City, but Chicago works.
Yeah, I don't know, something about like, Al Capone and all that,
Yeah.
That's what had me in Chicago. It doesn't matter.
Well,
I
Dick
guess
Tracy is who caught Al Capone, right?
Yeah, absolutely, yeah, via the newspaper strips. That's how he wasn't paying the taxes for the newspaper.
That's true. Yeah.
Yep. Don't ever submit that on a history paper. For those of you still in school, it's not true. Next up is just to go back to the snipers real fast. It just wasn't necessary. Like, I get that the world would have been empty, which is a mistake in itself because it shouldn't have been. It shouldn't be like, hey, this world's gonna be pretty empty, so why don't we put snipers on all the rooftops? Like, that seems like a really extreme decision.
Yeah.
It could have just been like, the Metroidvania style approach of just like gates and stuff that keep you out of the way until you make certain progress, or I don't know, other forms of enemies other than guys on the roof. Like that could have happened.
Or maybe just put guys on.
You've got this
some
gun.
roofs.
You've got this gun mounted to your vehicle, but you can't shoot the guys on the roofs with them. And I don't like. It's like maybe there should just be more car combat then. Like, not even that you can really control the vehicle because the game is enforcing you drive on the right side of the road at all times. So it's actually more of like you're stuck to this grid. You're not really moving. It's so weird.
I need you to talk more about that, Sean, because I feel like that's something we have a little, not even just glossed over, but we haven't mentioned that. Like, so you're in overhead driving. Think like Grand Theft Auto 1 and 2, like the originals. It's like that.
That's the vibe. But like, okay, what it does do, and I kind of have to give him a lot of credit for this. The whole idea of ludonarrative dissonance. I don't think we've talked about it too often on this podcast. It's a big $5 word for no reason, but it's what's kind of brought up when you do all this crazy video game shit, and then the story is like, oh, I don't want to kill people, I don't want to hurt people. Sorry, I'm doing a lot of Red Dead stuff because I'm playing through that again. But the game has kind of removed that entirely from the possibility of how you would play this game, of like this crazy Dick Tracy that just drives all over the place and shoots everyone. and just like has no respect for traffic laws because it ties you to the right lane, and it's almost as if like you're not actually controlling the car. You're kind of moving the car as like a piece on a game board. I mean that's not a perfect analogy, but it's the best way that I can describe it. It's
on
bizarre.
rails.
Yeah.
And I mean, not to go off the topic of the car, but this isn't the only instance where them trying to, I don't remember your $5 word, but them trying to incorporate that hurts the gameplay, because you also are not supposed to shoot unarmed enemies. You can just punch them, but you can shoot them and you'll just get punished for it. And that also, like, I get that they're trying to be like, yeah, he's our hero, and he shouldn't shoot unarmed people. But also, like, they didn't make it easy to do that in this video game.
No. You gotta do some hot swapping. We'll get into it.
Yeah, I got ahead of ourselves.
When you get out of the car, too, you're still like able to free roam now as Dick Tracy. Again, they nailed the yellow coat. Totally,
So
I know
yellow.
that Dick Tracy.
His
On that
sprite
little
is so
dot
yellow.
that you are on the
But the screen like locks. You can walk around the area that you have created for yourself when you get out of the car, but you can't like just walk around on foot and explore the city. You are locked to wherever the car is. So you can really only just get out of it for, I don't know, like I guess a break in the gameplay loop, but it's really just to park the car, get out of it, and walk into the building. You might as well
shoot
just
the people on the roof.
Yeah, that's true. I guess I was
But
just thinking like, don't mess with the people on the roof and just leave.
Yeah.
that's
Like,
the thing.
just
If you're
drive
going to take
away.
the time to get out and fight back against the people on the roof, you're just putting yourself in more danger when you could have just driven away and like been in probably less danger.
It's never worth it, Sean. Sometimes you just have to walk away from the snipers. And then when you enter these buildings, this is where it loses all detective elements and kind of becomes like another detective, a caped crusader, the Batman NES game. It follows that style of side-scrolling action now, and everybody knows that Dick Tracy is the strongest man alive because when he punches anybody, he sends them flying. It literally should have a comic book like wallop, like a pow, kapow, something every time he punches one of these guys, because they go spinning across the screen, and they even
they don't
deliver.
stop.
Yeah, they deliver damage to other guys.
Well, I will, as the resident Dick Tracy expert, I will vouch for him and his strength, because in the film there's a great montage there's two, but there's one of him arresting a bunch of people, and in this montage there is one shot that stood out to me where there's like 10 bad guys in all different color suits, all standing like all near each other, and Dick Tracy with one punch knocks them all down like bowling pins. So that was he's a strong guy.
That's pretty cool.
And if you don't feel like punching, you can just shoot them from a distance too. That's an option.
As long as they are armed.
Yes, because again, there's this funny like code to Dick Tracy. You know, he there's a penalty for shooting civilians or rather like causing damage that you don't need to. And so I kind of like that they kept
it
that
makes
good
sense.
nature.
But like
Right?
this is
Like-
what Joe was getting at, that like in order to play the game the most efficiently, and this kind of gets into the controls. Like you use select to change the thing that you're using. One of which is your fist, the other of which is your gun, and sometimes you got like first aid kits or whatever. But like if you wanted to do that, it's kind of janky the way that you go about. Like, oh, now I got to punch people. Now I'm in punch mode. Like, okay, now I gotta shoot people. Now I'm in shoot mode. But like the speed at which you're going through this level, it doesn't really lend itself to that kind of like very slow decision making. And sometimes it's better to just go around and just punch everybody, but sometimes you can't. It's not a perfect system.
Yeah, it's actually incredibly frustrating because Yeah, if you're just punching people because you don't want to accidentally shoot someone who's unarmed, anyone with a gun will hit you from a distance, and there's nothing you can do about it. The only way to switch to the gun is by hitting select, which is not like conducive to very quick, like rapid cycling or anything. And then you're holding the gun, you shoot one person, another one would come up behind you or in front of you that just is unarmed. Then you got to switch back to the fist, and by that time you're getting hit again. So it's like it really, really breaks up the action. And I don't see why they couldn't have done like A being punch and B being shoot and just like reassigned some things, put something else on select.
All you gotta do, and maybe Mike won't like this, maybe there's times when up should be jump.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think this is like, well, there are some platforming levels, so that would be kind of annoying, but I think that it would be less annoying than what we have.
Yeah, that's a good point, Joe, about the platforming, because even though you're always like entering buildings or warehouses or docks or whatever, it does kind of eventually just switch off from being like a what's the word I'm looking for here? But like rather than just like tiers of different platforms, there does become pitfalls and like you have to take down enemies before you can move to the next platforms. It does become a little bit more of a platformer action style game as you continue to move throughout, where that part tries to spice things up a little bit. But ultimately, the loop of finding out the next place you need to go doesn't become any more of a puzzle. You're not really given any kinds of cryptic clues. So it's really just about like driving around the city and finding the next spot that you kind of like were told to go to. Should there have been more of a detective element there where instead of just like, okay, you went to the correct location, arrested the correct guy, found out now where you need to go next, should it have been a little more like open-ended about what particular order you visit these places, and if you if you visit the wrong one, that it's not necessarily like, oh, we'll change the whole story for you, but that it might leave you a different clue or something, rather than just say like, hey, you need to go to 9 and J. I feel like it's a little too on the nose there.
I like that idea in theory, but I have no confidence in like really any NES game pulling that off in a way that would be fun. So I'm okay with them doing it like the detective thing is just sort of like dressing up the gameplay, where it's like, yeah, it's just story beats really, and like that's fine, because I wouldn't want what I expect I would get if that's what they made. I just don't think they would do a good job.
And we're also talking about the game that, in addition to like, oh, this is where the next guy is, and you could just, and it doesn't change. It's not like this is like procedurally generated. Like every time you play the game, the cross streets that you go to are the same cross streets. So you could know where to go, but you just don't. You have to still get the evidence, so you still have to go to the other places. Yeah, this is the game where once you're also doing all that, like you're going and you're finding all those clues that you need before you can go to where you need to go if you played this before. Like it says on the screen, clue. It's screaming clue at you. If this was trying to be anything like that, like trying to get any kind of deductive reasoning out of you, trying to be a detective game, it just wouldn't do that. So I don't think that we're really at the hardware level where a game like that could work. Maybe like when you were talking, the idea in my head was like something the clues about fish. And maybe there's a dock that you could go to. Maybe there's like a fish market that you can go to. And depending on where you went, you'd get a different clue. But I think even that's too complex for what they're able to do here. I don't know.
I hear you.
I think it would require like a total overhaul of the game. You'd need like a different overworld that has like landmarks that could be cryptic, or that you can the answer to puzzles or something. And so I just don't see it being anything but like a totally different game that way.
Right, but then the problem becomes that really this game lives or dies based on these side-scrolling action segments. Then where you have your incredibly powerful punch and your gun. Those don't really evolve. Like Dick Tracy doesn't need to be stronger or use other weapons, or I know preliminary knowledge here, but like, doesn't he have a really cool watch that like in the comics at least he has like a two-way watch or something that he uses a lot?
Like it counts time backwards and forwards?
I'm trying to think
he's got like a two-way radio watch, which I think was like a thing before
right. And
anyone had phones, obviously. They're like cell phones.
So that could have been something, but even that's not a thing. So ultimately, like, I don't know, it's just it becomes a stale loop kind of fast where it really needs to evolve. And I feel like that clue thing, you know, not a full blown detective game, but just something about making it also about navigating this city. Instead, it's really just like a chore to navigate around this city with all these snipers on the roofs, which is just a crazy choice.
Yeah, it really does come down to that. Like, I don't think that this is that terrible of a game and I can just live with the fact that the clues and the notebook are all just a different way to select a different level. It's just the fact that it's so impossible to get around the city that like it makes it really difficult to even try to enjoy the game.
Yeah, but I do think that there's also major flaws in the side-scrolling main meat of the game too, which is basically, I mean, maybe it's because I was trying so hard to like not shoot the unarmed people and shoot the people that are armed. That made it like kind of that gave me similar frustrations as the overworld did. So I do think that like even if they fixed the overworld, like they'd have to still fix the side-scrolling thing. But not essential.
Oh, whoa.
No, sorry.
And Joe, you know, forgive me, didn't watch the movie, but thank you for watching it. My understanding is that this is like no tie-in necessarily with the movie, other than maybe some characters also appearing in the movie, but it's not like Dick Tracy 1990 film The Game.
Yeah, it doesn't even seem like, and I didn't beat the game, but it doesn't seem like even like the same bad guys are the bad, you know, these bad guys are from the movie, but it doesn't seem like the same plot of like who's the bad guy and what are they trying to do.
Well, and this is something that I can say that I didn't do, which was play beyond. Okay, we didn't even talk about this, and I think it needs to be like addressed. The whole concept of the first mission, not the first level, not the first screen. Sorry, I'm going a little off topic. Is you are being called in as like the big guns because somebody found a fake $20 bill, and
yeah, that's true.
Like, is that really that important?
That's where it starts, Sean. It starts with the fake $20 bill. They must have more fake $20
Sure.
bills.
It's a whole like it's a whole racket for making counterfeit currency, but like. I guess what I started this off with is like, isn't that just the first mission? Aren't there more missions? Did anybody play the other missions?
Yeah, I mean, like it evolves into something much larger where you're essentially going to take down this entire gang.
Oh, okay. Yeah, see, I only played the first $20 bill thing.
Now, it's worth mentioning, though, $20 is $381 today.
That's true.
That's true.
Wow, that's $20 in 2024 is $381 as well.
So I mean, that is a big deal. If there was $381 of counterfeit money out there, you better believe that top detectives and crime law enforcement agents would come in and they'd be all over it. But
if something costs $381 today, it's basically free.
It's eggs.
True. It's eggs. Yeah.
But yeah, it's like be lucky that it's only $381.
But going back to what you were saying about like, you know, how much does this like follow the film? One like almost like a major theme of Dick Tracy's character in the movie is that he will never have a desk job. Like he just like they talk about it a lot. It's like a big thing with his love interest where he's not going to settle down. He's not going to have a desk job. He wouldn't have a desk job. People always say that. He says he doesn't want a desk job over and over again. What's the first thing you see in this game? Is Dick Tracy sitting at a desk, sitting at a desk like the deskiest desk that you've ever seen. It's got like a lawyer lamp on it. It's like a boring old desk job desk.
Lawyer lamp.
So already I'm like, wow, this is not following the lore.
That's really funny because maybe this is like a sequel. This is like what happens.
Right, it could be.
He does settle down.
Dick Tracy settles down.
Sean, your tagline there, Dick Tracy settles down. I just wanted to talk about the movie poster for Dick Tracy, the 1990 film. The movie poster just says Dick Tracy now playing everywhere. like where a tagline would be. That's not what you put on a movie poster.
I mean,
Now playing everywhere?
Yeah, if I read that movie poster now in 2024, is that still true? Can I, like, that movie poster doesn't make sense to me anymore.
that's true. It definitely one of those situations, like, I don't know why posters are legal, because, like, they say that, like, you know, a show is happening soon, but, like, if you see the poster too late, the show isn't happening anymore. So yeah, I get that if we're going to, like, if we're using that logic.
Crossover that everybody wants to see: Dick Tracy and Curious George solving a case together in their yellow.
Because of the yellow?
Yeah, they wear the yellow jumpsuits, right? Coats, yellow rain jacket.
I'd like to see Dick Tracy in, like, a yellow jumper, like a yellow, not a jumper. What's the word that, it's like a dude wears a onesie.
A romper?
A romper. Yeah, Dick Tracy in a romper.
I'm gonna try and pitch that. Curious George meets Dick Tracy, and they
In a romper.
They take down Al Capone and Dwayne Johnson.
Dwayne Johnson, like the actor, like he's not like playing anyone.
He's not playing anybody. Yeah. It's finally catching up to him.
I'd be into it.
There are some other Dick Tracy games. They're kind of unnotable though. There's a Game Boy game. It's like a simplified version of this game. I don't even know if it has the city part. I feel like you're just doing the side-scrolling action part. And no sense of like a desk job in that one either. So maybe that's a plus. Maybe it's more real for Dick Tracy. There's also, this is weird, but in 1990, same year, Dick Tracy got a Sega Genesis game, 16 bits, way better than 8.
That's a lot of bits.
Twice as good.
Yep. I can't tell if it leveraged the detective thing more or not, though. Not from this little glimpse.
What I saw of it, because I did research it, because it is one piece of Dick Tracy media, which I researched all of.
Yes.
If this is the one I'm thinking of, you can, like, you know, it's side scrolling, you're shooting, you know, left to right like normal, but you can also shoot into the background. You can like turn towards the background and shoot like into quote unquote Z space.
Yes, but you look like a mobster when you do that.
I know, but it's a cool pice of like
That's
tech
very
advancement that you could
Dick
do
Tracy
that.
vibes. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll just say that if I was the owner of an NES and I was playing Dick Tracy, and then I went over to my friend's house and they were playing Dick Tracy on Sega Genesis, I would want a Sega Genesis the next day. Like, it's crazy. We don't talk about it enough that, like, Nintendo's just doing their 8-bit thing, and Sega's over here releasing 16-bit games every week as well, and we're just not even paying attention to them.
Should we just
switch?
switch?
Should start another podcast.
I mean, not another. Just stop doing this one and start doing that one.
You want to know what's next gen about Dick Tracy on the Sega Genesis? The kind of stuff that makes you say, like, this is the future of video games? They shoot at you, the enemies, and then they reload. They have like a reload animation where they like put bullets in the gun. It's like that would never happen on an NES. But we're gonna do something that happens every episode on Nostalgia, and that's the Essential Games List. Look, you can say that they nailed the yellow coat and the yellow hat, and they did. They nailed it. It's pretty freaking impressive. I know that I'm playing as Dick Tracy, whereas that's not always true in these franchise games. I don't know what my biggest gripe is here, but I have a lot of gripes, and I feel like we talked about them throughout the show. So it's not necessarily that they failed Dick Tracy, the 1990 movie, or the brand or whatever. Like, no, I think they gave us a notable NES experience. It just didn't wind up becoming anything other than another Dick Tracy media point for Joe to study for his midterms. So, for that reason, I feel like once I realized that the whole game really was the parts where you're in the building, that's where I kind of like noped out of it. Like, I thought this was going to be something where I kind of had to like check back with my notes and find secret rooms and, you know, interrogate people. When that became clear that wasn't happening, my opinion of this game shifted very fast. So for that reason, it's a no. What about you, Joe?
Yeah, they tried to do like one of those things where there's like multiple styles of game in this. And I do think that none of them really are particularly fun because of the way they're designed. I think there's there's potential that they could have been fun, or at least the side-scrolling stuff could have been. But even that, it's just more frustrating to me than it is fun. I'm definitely voting not essential, which I already spoiled earlier. But I also just dawned on me too that I meant to mention that there's the word continue is on the menu screen, but you don't get any continues. I don't understand.
There's
you die and you go back to, unless I missed it or didn't
codes.
understand.
There's codes.
There are codes, but does it give you a code when you die?
When you finish if you were to finish the $20 bill caper,
yeah,
you get a code.
Oh, yeah. No, I totally did that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember now.
There you go.
Sean?
Hello.
What's your vote?
Oh, hi. Yeah, that's the theme. We've been using the theme of frustration over fun. This is mostly frustration. I do think that there's I have to admire what they tried to do, at least with the whole. Again, I don't see this as like multiple types of gameplay because the only one that's fleshed out in any way is the side scrolling. So I just see everything else as framing for getting from one level to another. I like that you can try to arrest the enemies, try to arrest the other people, like no matter if you have evidence or not. I think that's very realistic. But then your boss is just like, damn it, Dick, we can't do this. Like those are always funny. But that's not what I'm going to vote anything essential for. It just makes me laugh a little bit. This game has a lot of inexplicable decisions that I don't know what they're trying to do here. But it didn't work, so it's not essential.
Yeah, you should have been able to just arrest anybody.
Yeah.
Like you're the law. You should just be able to, like, rather than have to punch those guys, you should just be able to, like, you know, again, Phoenix Wright, objection. You should just be like, you're under arrest. There should be a you're under arrest button.
Exclaim, I am the law, and there you go.
Could have been a cop simulator. Could have been GTA for cops. But it wasn't. Is there like a GTA for cops? Probably not, right?
I think there is a police simulator, but it's some Eastern European developer, not very good.
Well, while we're on the subject, since Joe mentioned it, did all three of us play LA Noire?
Yeah.
I did in its day, so it's been a very long time.
Yeah, it's been a long time.
It's been a long time for me as well, but I will say favorable view. I view it.
Me too.
I view it in a favorable light.
I remember it fondly, which is why I don't want to replay it.
And I do remember half the cast of Mad Men being in it.
That's true. That did happen.
I have no idea why they were there, but that's cool. They were going for that time period, so they said, let's just grab them all.
Not even the right time period.
Oh, yeah. Really? Wait, when did LA Noire take place?
It's like the 40s.
Like the 20s, right?
Okay, so it's further back. I feel like that's actually acceptable. If you would have told me it was the 70s, I would have been like, that's weird.
Oh, yeah, no, that wouldn't have worked. That's
further back, 47, 60.
Okay, we're not talking about the flashback sequences, Mike. We're talking about the show.
Oh, right. MLB, the show. Which also scanned in Don Draper's face. Very weird.
No, they didn't.
They didn't.
Okay. All right.
All right, we're out.